You're now listening to the 1130 podcast. Enjoy the show.
I'm from the city, DC, that's where I'm from. 1130 podcast, Dre on Wheels, he is the one. Let's get it, yeah. Who with me? Let's get it, yeah. Who with me? I'm from the city, DC, that's where I'm from. Let's get it. 1130 podcast, Dre on Wheels.
Yo, what it do, everybody, man? Welcome back to another episode of the 1130 podcast. What's goody, man? It's your man Dre, aka Dre on Wheels. Y'all already know what it is, man. Appreciate everyone tuning in to another episode here on the 1130 podcast YouTube channel. If you're new to the show and if you're new to the podcast, man, you haven't done so already, man, I don't know what you're waiting for. Definitely hit that subscribe button down below. Like it, leave a comment, and share it. Do all that great stuff. And don't forget to follow the 1130 podcast on all social media platforms. All right, man, now that's out the way. Beautiful day, beautiful guest is joining me here on the 1130 podcast show, man. On the podcast show this week, man, my guy Law, you guys. Yes, man. Artist, rapper, producer, engineer, just to name a few, man. My guy is all over the place and been doing this thing for some time. We're going to bring him on, man. Bring him on and chat with him and all the music he got going on and all the amazing stories and the journey he have taken to get me here right now. So, but like I said, we're going to waste no more time. We're going to bring on my wonderful guest, my guy Law. What's going on with you, partner?
Yes. What's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it, man.
No, I appreciate you for taking the invite, coming on, man. It's awesome, man. I like to have different variety of guests, man. It's awesome. Like I was telling before we went on air, man. Shout out to Katrina, man, who definitely been hooking
entertainment. Trina and Rachel, love them girls so much. You know, appreciating everything on a lot of levels, man. Thank you.
Yes, shout them out, yo. Thank you for hooking me up with my guy Law right here, man. What's going on with you? How your day been?
Man, my day has been going great, busy as usual, but always just in passing because as a true Brooklyn hood boy, the hustle don't stop. So you have to be ready and willing at all times and the grind, you can't cheat it. You have to be ready and ready at all times just to make things happen,
Okay. You say you're a Brooklyn hood boy. Tell me about this Brooklyn hood boy, man, and how you get to, being opening up for so many different legendary artists, man, and being this great producer that you are right now.
My start and my journey, of course, begins in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. Crown Heights, St. Mark's Avenue is my block. Albany Project surrounds our block. So I grew up between St. Mark's, between Albany and Kingston. So, and if you know anything about Brooklyn, if you know anything about Crown Heights or Bed-Stuy or Brownsville or East New York or Red Hook or Bushwick or any other notorious part of Brooklyn, then, we're known all over the world. And, this is before Biggie and Jay and those guys became who they became and uplifted our Brooklyn hood culture to the masses. But thanks to the Fat Boys and Big Daddy Kane and Houdini and UTFO and Full Force is some of the first groups from the culture that was from Brooklyn. The attitude, the hustle, the gratitude of shit talking and being able to back up your shit, because anybody can talk a good one, but you have to be able to back it up. And in addition to that, coming from a pretty famous family in the music industry, the path was pretty laid out for me. And when I say that, meaning that I wasn't forced into it, but when you grow up, when you have a mother who wins first place at the Apollo and an uncle that won so many times at the Apollo, they had to retire him. And, when you have a legendary uncle that played with Kool and the Gang and James Brown and Bobby Bird, and you got a uncle who hung out with Kumo D when he was still with the Treacherous Three, I came up in it. I came up in it on every level. So what they say, I got it honestly. That's the way to say it. I got it honestly. And, a lot of people, if I wasn't doing music, I would be boxing or playing football or be a lawyer, since I like to. I always delved into that side of the fence in terms of debating and arguing a point and legalities and certain terms and things like that. I was always into as a kid. So, it was laid out for me. And I personally feel on a spiritual level that God used music to save me from the streets. Because just like anywhere, just like if it's Memphis or Compton or Detroit, Chicago, in any one of the inner cities that we all grew up in, the arts was an escape for a lot of us. A lot of
Yeah.
I still got friends who are locked up in prison. I still, you know, I got family members who are LD, you know, family members who are shot and killed, you know, a lot of different things. Now, you know, that's why a lot of times when people get into these beefs about city cultures, I'm like, there really shouldn't be any beef between the inner cities, because the thing is, we all have the same thematic struggle and all of that. You know, like my boy Ralph Tresvant of the legendary New Edition always said, you know, because he's one of those, you know, New Edition came from the projects. That's another reason why I connected with them so much as a kid, even though Prince and Michael and James Brown and Hendrix and Stevie Wonder are my first primary heroes, but they were all adults. You know what I'm saying? So seeing New Edition, seeing kids that look like me, even though they were older, you know, they were my older brother's age, but seeing them gave me more hope. They were from where I'm from, and to see them go from the streets to big arenas and stages and living their life. You know, Ralph always said, in the hood, you had to find your angle. You're not afraid of it, but you knew you had to get out someday. And
I dig that. I definitely dig that, man. That was sort of my next question too, because you said you come from Brooklyn, man, and you grew up sort of in the projects, man, and sort of that didn't, you know, normally you grow up in the projects, especially sometimes in New York, man. It's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and and a lot of places, whether like you mentioned, Memphis, Cali, or wherever you at,
start
but
learning. You learn the culture as you go along, because, you know, coming up, because, you know, New York is the Mecca, as we all know. Because the one thing that all of the other cities around the world got in common is that even if they were popping in their hometown, they knew they all had to come to New York to kind of prove themselves. But the opposite end of that is when most of us East Coasters got to change. You know, LA's my second hometown, so I learned it early at 7, 8 years
okay.
old out in LA. But the thing is that when you start to travel, there's still people in my neighborhood that never left. When you start to travel, that's when you understand and you recognize that, okay, New York is not the hardest city in the world, because you go into more areas where, at least in New York, we could have did this, but in these areas, you can't do any of that. There's really no. We think about Third Ward in New Orleans, you know, where Master P and most of the members of No Limit is from. You know, you learn, or Houston, you know, the Fifth Ward. You know, you learn as you go along. It's like, wow, you know, this is really. Or as the legendary funk band War said, one of my favorite songs, "The world is a ghetto." A lot
I
of
got
women
you.
believe that.
Uh-huh. Hey, you said, man, like you went down the music path, man, and music sort of chose you in a way. How was it sort of escaping the street life, and getting into music? Because a lot of guys, like you said, man, are still in the streets, or still locked down or so. What was it about music that sort of pulled you away from that to go a different direction?
It's kind of hard to explain, because, you know, my world is very diverse. You know, I'm a son of a Black Panther mother, so
Mm,
the knowledge of self that I already had as a young Black man, and understanding it even more as I got older. But then here I am on St. Mark's Avenue, you know, and let me just be clear about some things. You know, even as crazy as it was, we had more good times than bad. Me and my boy was just talking about this not too long ago. It's like, you know, it's crazy, because with all the stuff that could have really happened, and things that you have to live and you learn, and you go through the process of what we call the rites of passage in the street. And the thing for me is that, you know, my friends were broken up into 4 different sections. You had the artsy kids who were involved in talent shows and creative arts and doing different things. And of course, I was one of those. And then you had the scholastic nerdy nerd kids, because I was definitely that too, even though I was still street, but I was, you know, I was a ABBC student. So for me, I love going to school. I love learning. And then when I went home, you know, the library, I lived on Nostrand Avenue for a time, and the library was right across the street from my house. Literally, I'm talking about, you can look outside the window and I'm facing the library. So that's where most of my time was spent, when I wasn't playing with my friends and doing normal stuff like playing Nintendo in the house. You know, I grew up like any other normal hood kid. Like, I had all the advantages of that. And then on the opposite end, a lot of my friends who I grew up with were gang members. So in New York City, it's Deceps, Low Lives, Face Heads, Latin Kings, and of course that's my era, because the era before me was Black Spades. That's where African Bambaataa comes from, like the Bronx, the gangs in the Bronx. That's that's before my time. But the thing is, in my era, for the 80s and the 90s, these were the things that you got, and these were most of my friends. I was never part of a gang, but these were all of my friends, people who I actually hung out with. And a maintained thing of leadership, the one thing we learned in our family, and I'm not saying no other family ever experienced that, was that we were raised to be leaders. So no matter how much, I always tell people, anything that me and my brothers and my cousins got into, we got into on our own. It's not the fault of our parents. We came from very good parents. Our parents raised us right, or did their best to do what they can do, especially my mom. So the thing is, anything that we got into after that was pretty much it. But music was always the conduit through everything, because, again, growing up with a pretty famous family, my grandfather, God bless his soul, he was the official rock star of the family. He done worked with Etta James and Aretha Franklin and the Ozzy brothers when they were a trio back in the day. So we were being fascinated about me and my older brother were being fascinated about all these stories. And every time he would, he's a traveling man. You know what they say about the bluesmen. The bluesmen travel. He was living his best. Then when he would come to New York, it's like a movie. You know what I mean? Parents would come home, and here's the thing. I would see my older aunties and my mother. These are grown, independent women, but as soon as my granddad came on the scene, they became daddy's little girls all over again. And, and I'm like that. It's funny, because I'm like that with my kids now. Like two of my daughters are the extreme daddy's girls. So like the whole thing of when we get around each other, we get excited, it's like, and these are my kids who I raised. I was in my children's life. So the thing is, music just always served as as far as I can remember, like the little things, the moments when I'm sad, when I'm happy. Music was always the thing that gave me solace when I was still trying to figure out who the hell Lawrence Taylor Worrell Jr. was. That's my full name. I was still trying to figure out who I was. And then, right around that time, you start creating these different personas and environments, and you're tapping into frequencies such as sci-fi movies and DC Marvel comics and video games and things that make you happy. These are things I still do to this day as a grown-ass man. Like, these are things that still keep me sane, because all I remember is when life wasn't so crazy. You know what I mean? We all have that moment. When you get to a certain point in the age, you have to always tell people. And my mother gave us the greatest. My mother taught me a lot of things, but the greatest thing my mother taught me is when you create your own environment, you'll never be bored in life. And that stands to this day. So even when most of my friends were getting into different things, and I don't knock them, I don't knock anybody's hustle and what they got into, because that was just the way it was. When the 90s came along and when crack hit the streets, it changed the demographic on a lot of different levels. On the soul, and a lot of girls wouldn't talk to you unless you were rolling. And and then the thing is, you see those cars, you see those girls. A lot of my friends got, it's quick money. So you get hooked in the thing, and then you getting told, well, wait to get a job and do this. Or here's a funny thing. A lot of people got clowned for having a regular job. It's funny how we celebrate UPS and Amazon and all that stuff now. He's like, it's benefits. I want a man with benefits. Back in the 80s, a lot of women weren't looking at that. Keyword, a lot of women. There were some women who understood and knew and wanted a good man that had a great job. And they were just women who wanted a man that just had a lot of money no matter how he got it. And that fueled the passion, the fire for a lot of hustlers. Because, for them, it was like, this is what I got going on here. And they figured, if I keep playing like this, I may go to the NBA, but that's not always guaranteed. So it's a lot of different. I can go on and on. It's a lot of different examples. I'll sum up the best way. And Biggie said it best. That's why I miss him so much, because we was one of the examples. On the song Things Done Change, he said, on the streets, it's a shortstop. Either you're selling crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. That was the realest thing ever said, because a lot of my friends went through that. And a lot of, and I'm not the only one that escaped the trials of growing up in the hood, slum, project, ghetto, whatever you call it, because my legendary cousin, Omar Cook, who played for the Nuggets, he's another one. It's my blood cousin. Like we escaped our environments to do what we love. You know, him and his brother Shamik, and those are my cousins. They were passionate about basketball the way I was about music. So
Gotcha.
we look at each other when we talk. Sometimes we all be like, "Man, we did that." You know, we actually escaped. You know, it wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always easy, but we can honestly say that we're living our dreams. A lot of people can't say that. You know.
You're right. You're right. You definitely. A lot of people definitely can't say that at all. You mentioned you're the son of a Black Panther, right?
Yeah, my mother.
Okay. How was that? How was that growing up? Being, because you don't hear too many stories of someone being sort of related, or uh, a, a person being in or a member of the Black Panthers. But how was that growing up for you?
Well, I mean, my mom was part of the New York chapter in the movement. She actually knew Tupac's parents before Tupac became Tupac. So my mom,
Okay.
on my upcoming album, which will be out probably in another month or so, it's my political social album. I talk about all this stuff because on social media it's starting to crack down on people expressing their social and political views, but they can't shut down the music. And because I own it, I'm able to talk about things. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that deeper in context on my album. I have a song called "Son of a Black Panther Mother" because I didn't learn this until later. You got to remember, my mother, when I began to learn more about our history and not his story, if you get the drift,
Mm,
when you
yeah, I
learn
get
when
it.
we learn our story, the more deeper I got into, you know, black nationalism and learning who I was as a black man. Because you got to remember, this is the 80s, and in public schools, there was only a handful of teachers that were teaching the truth.
Yeah.
And thank God, and here's the thing, I'm not a 5% on or Muslim, but thank God for those brothers, because a lot of them was talking a lot of the stuff I agree with, because they were having the actual factuals being presented in real time, and these are things that were left out of the history books. So my mother was the one that was really, really doubling up on what they were saying. He's like, and I would be like, "Your mom, is that true?" He's like, "Oh, that's very much true." And my mom is a Christian woman, so there you go. You know what I mean? So think about how that works. You learn about the history of our people, and it's deeper than slavery. Because it seems like every time when they put out a movie, they always want to go back to slavery. When they're going to do a movie about Nat Turner, the slave that actually escaped and fought back. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So that's why
yeah.
when Malcolm X came out, we were very proud. But my mother, I learned that later. So when I learned about the movement, I learned that my mother was a huge part of it in terms of when she wasn't doing that. So when she got into the school system later on in life, when the movement kind of died down, she was singing in clubs at nighttime, and a school teacher, and writing for Popular Science magazine during the day. So the thing is that my mother was the greatest example of the supreme intelligence that me and my brothers and my cousins and my sisters would acquire, because we knew who we were, even though we still had one foot in the street. But the supreme knowledge between her and Public Enemy albums, I say this all the time, I learned more about my black history from a Public Enemy record than I ever fucking did in school. Period. I learned
Mm,
so much from them, KRS-One, X Clan. You start to learn these things. You put things together. I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. And the thing is that my mother gave me a book that changed my life forever called Before the Mayflower.
mm.
That told us
Okay.
about, remember, in school we grew up with the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, Columbus, the
Yeah.
no. You dig what I'm saying? And once we learned the truth, it was like, you mean to tell me that they put this in the curriculums of schools? So how funny is it that when I became a teacher in my aunt's school, shout out to Anointed Minds Christian Academy, I made it a point to teach not only American history, but I taught Black history too, because I wanted kids to see the contrast. I wanted them to understand why it was important for them to have that piece of paper. You don't need it. You don't need everything in school that they teach you, but the basics: reading, writing, science, and definitely math, and especially history. I want to make sure they knew, because as you see today, I mean, thank God for the internet, but most kids in this generation, they're not, they'll research what they like, but they're not going to research the information that's needed. And some kids don't even read books anymore, and they're not even being encouraged.
Nope. And that's one thing I learned too, man. If you want to hide something from Black people, put it in the
The
books,
book.
man.
Oh yeah, that's
Put it in the books, man. And I think it's wonderful. Like how you just said, your mom gave you a book that changed your life, man. And I'm being a black man, you know, myself, Black history is very, very important. And now, like how you mentioned in schools, they don't really teach you jack or what you really need to know and live in your daily life in society or
Not
whatever
even,
like that.
yeah,
So
not even, and then not even, I mean, if it was left up to me, in the words of Sly and the Family Stone, one of my favorite songs, if it were left up to me, like that's not only will, because you could, no, let me get even deeper. Hold up. Look at Florida. Look at Alabama. They took Black history out. They taken Black history out some of the schools. They don't even want the white kids to learn about why we speak the way we do or about the history that's been hidden. See what I'm saying? So it's even more the
yeah,
reason why, I talk on my album, I talk about this, but on the upcoming album, I get into all, it's deep. This is out of my 3 albums that I've done, this is going to be my 4th or 5th album. And this is the album where it's going to be the only album of its kind. I was very highly inspired by the late great Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On" album, which in my opinion is the greatest R&B pop album of all time, 50-something years later, because it's still relevant. Marvin was a prophet, just like Bob Marley was. They was talking it, when he said crime is increasing, trigger happy policing, we still dealing with that 50, 60-something years later. And that was way before I was even born. So think about that for 1 second, and why I wanted to make an album that spoke to social injustice and a lot of things that I'm passionate about, that I've always spoken about when I got online and stuff like that. But the thing is that now I get to put it into the music form. So I spent a lot of time every time I would go. That's why it took so long to put out, because every time I would do like 5 songs, I'm end up writing another one. I'm watching the news. I'm writing this song. I'm putting this together. So now I finally created songs I can narrow down to. But it's so important, because the thing is that, when you got cities that are now banning books and taking things out of the schools that are necessary for the growth, not just for young Black kids, but even for white kids that may not understand and not being taught, because they're being fed other things, and they start thinking, well, how come they don't know? And then you wonder why NWA is very important, because when they came out with the song "Fuck the Police," there was this whole big thing of, why police are good. And again, there are, and just so we clear, there are good police officers. I'm just making that clear. But the whole thing is that they were talking about the system of oppression, because if you look at the history of how the police was even started, it was originally the runaway slave patrol. See, people don't connect it. It's like, that's not a theory. That's not a myth. This is the actual facts. So the thing is that when you understand that you're not using your proper training to subdue a situation, and then you wonder why all of our young Black kids pop up murder. I mean, so many we can name. It's almost like, and then you wondering why there's riots in the streets, and then a lot of white people are made to feel like, oh, these people just resisting arrest. And then when the Rodney King thing happened, all of a sudden now America woke up. It took that for people to really be like, when they saw the video of him getting beat, when they was taking turns beating him. Now all of a sudden America woke up to my big bro Ice-T. It's my dude. You know what I mean? Like that. They woke up to all the knowledge that he had been. Ice-T was dropping that knowledge from the first album to his last album. He been speaking it, and then NWA and everybody else came in the mix. He's been saying it, but then all of a sudden, when the LA riots happened and they tore the city up, now they want to change their mind about that. I said, no, it's because you saw that video, and that should have been a guilty verdict from the very beginning. You know what I'm saying? So this is why reading, not to get too deep into this, I know we gotta get to some other stuff, but this is why reading is fundamental, why reading is important. When I raised my 4 children, that was the main thing with me above anything else. I enforced it. It was like damn near a rule in my house. And now with my grandbabies, I got these new books coming in. Now I got 3 grandchildren, so I give them stuff. Of course they have toys and everything else, but I made sure that my daughters got books so they can read, even the basic stuff, before they get to the deeper stuff of Black power and all that sort of thing. I want them to understand dialect. I want them to understand the use of the English words and knowing how to pronounce. And it's never too, listen, you see Asian kids all the time. You see a lot of different kids that fall into that great systematic part of learning and achieving. And that's the thing I will always aspire to, no matter how hood I'm actually am. That's the 2 sides of the fence of what I do.
I love it. I love it, man. I'm sitting here just learning a lot from you, man. Talk, man, and it's very important. Like you said, man. Put some books in front of a lot of these kids' faces, man, instead of video games or whatever electronics. Put them something in front of them that they can learn and use and adapt to, and and later on in their life. Though I want to tap into something real fast that you mentioned.
Yeah.
You said I forgot what musician artist you just mentioned, but you said it was like the greatest album of all time 50 years later, right? And there's a reason why. 50 years later, music has definitely changed, and I think you can vouch for this in a way where longevity. I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago. How important is longevity into music? Where you see a lot of music artists, such as in today. Excuse me, today, where it's like they making music for just the time, for just the moment. And where you see music artists, maybe 40, 30, 50 years ago, where their music still getting played now, where it's have longevity in it, though. Can you talk about that in the music business, though, and where it's like a lot of people now are either sounding the same and not being so much different.
Well, I was gonna say, man. I mean, you know why that is? Because we're from the era of the trendsetters. Think about all of the famous artists that me and you both love, no matter what genre. And you gotta remember, I listen to multiple genres of music. I was raised in gospel, funk, and R&B for obvious reasons. But the thing is, my family was my Juilliard for music. My older sister / cousin, Neffy, we were the only black kids in our class that were listening to Devo and Flock of Seagulls, all the new wave stuff that was coming out. And for that time period in the 80s, that synthesizer period where all these weird, quirky things like Kraftwerk and Roxy Music, we were into that. In addition to Ohio Players and Cameo and the Commodores and, stuff like that, even though that's the era before me, that's the era I was born in. But the thing is that having legendary uncles who was playing this stuff in the house, we learned as we went along. And the era of the trendsetters, when you think about the people who influenced me, like I mentioned earlier, James Brown, New Edition, the Spinners. I mean, on a hip hop level, Cool G Rap, Big Daddy Kane, Treacherous B. What do all these guys have in common? These were all in there. Even though they took the best of who they loved, they became their own thing. Parliament Funk, and nobody's different more than Parliament Funkadelic. And I'm not being biased. I'm part of that crew for the last 25 years, but it's the truth. If it wasn't for Parliament Funkadelic and them being so groundbreaking and diverse, there would be no Prince, there would be no Lenny Kravitz, there would be none of that. You know what I mean? So they gave us the permission to be free in who we were musically, because remember, there was a certain time period where you had labels telling black and white artists, this is what you are. If a young man by the name of Elton John would have listened to that when he was playing keyboards for the Ozzy Brothers, little known fact in case you don't know. I don't know if you knew. Elton John was the keyboard player for the Ozzy Brothers. You know what I'm saying? If Elton John would have had that mindset, he wouldn't be where he is today. Because Elton John always, that's why a lot of black fans love Elton John. I said because Elton John had the mixing of all of it, even though he was regarded as a pop artist. But Elton John always had a little bit of soul in his music. Same thing with David Bowie, who's one of my biggest influences. You dig what I'm saying? It's all parallel. It's all in the ingredients of the trendsetters, the people who dared to be different, even Sylvester. And, because he represented the gay community when the gay community was still pretty much taboo. Out there now, like you can, like in today's market, you can be whoever you want,
exactly,
and nobody can say shit. But back then, Sylvester and a couple of other people. I mean, even David Bowie too, because at one point David Bowie was bisexual, but all of them were still pumping their personas through the music. So again, they're trendsetters too, whether people want to admit it or not. They're trendsetters too in a lot of different ways. They opened a portal that wasn't being open. And then when hip hop came along, because hip hop got treated the worst. It's from the streets, it's the new thing. And like George used to always say, He said, I was in hip hop. I was into hip hop from the beginning because anytime it's that new thing, when the parents hate it, I knew it was going to take over the world because Parliament Funkadelic was that 20 years before hip hop came in the mix. So
Yeah.
once again, I'm from the era as well as you. We're from the era of the trendsetters, even in rock and roll, because once we established who we are, because we created rock and roll. Let's get deep. We created it. Little Richard, Chuck Berry,
Mm,
my grandfather's best friend the great Albert Collins, who's like my uncle, and his other best friend BB King. BB King, they used to be at our house. BB King and all the blues guys, all the doo-wop guys like the Coasters, the Olympics, little Anthony. Those are all my grandfather's friends. So when heavy metal came into the picture, like like Van Halen and AC/DC and all those white rock and roll
mm,
groups that me and my cousins were into, you know,
yeah.
off from the tree. So it gave us diversity. So this is what the Taylor household looked like. I'm giving you a view into what being in our households were like, And then I go to my Aunt Carol's house on New York Avenue in Nostrand, and she's a diehard OJ fan. So I'm listening to OJs, the Spinners, the Stylistics, the Dramatics. I'm learning Blue Magic. I'm learning about my harmonies. I'm learning all this stuff in a capacity because why? I grew up in the era of trendsetters, the people who made dope music that we're still listening to 50 something years later. And if you want to throw New Edition, New Kids on the Block, George Michael, I mean, there's so many I can name from just my direct era alone that still have songs that we're still singing today, that when it come on, you want to throw the microphone like how Steve Harvey did on Kings of Comedy when he was playing the songs. He played Love's Holiday by Earth, Wind& and Fire. I Want to Be Free by Ohio Play, but when he got to Lee Williams, I
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's me. That's my spirit. When he like he was grabbing his shit like oh shit like that. That's the feeling that those songs still give me when you put them on. Everything that Steve Harvey said in that speech, even though it was comedy, he he,
Yeah.
he spoke my feelings. He spoke my direct feelings. And that's not to say that some of the new and again to expand on what he said even more. That's not saying nothing against some of the new shit that I hear. Because there's a lot. First of all, there's a lot of great artists who still not getting the platform that they should get. And then even some of the mainstream ones, I said a few of them I actually do like. I said, but like you
Mm,
said earlier, the problem is that there's no diversity. And the
yeah.
radio stations don't make it the mainstream radio stations don't make it any better because when you're constantly pumping the same shit every day and the same sounds, it's only going to create a breed. It's habit forming. You're going to create a breed of these rappers. That's why every time I look up, there's a little so and so or a young so and so, and they got tattoos on their face. They got dreads, and
Ain't
again,
that something?
I'm not throwing no shade. I'm just being real.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first guy did it. The other guy should be looking like, okay, he's different. Now let me be different. But they're not being told that. They're being told we got to make this money. This is the new thing. We got to jump on this. And next thing you know, they may come out with a couple of records. They may get 1,000 million views and shit like that. But the next thing you know, you don't hear from them another 8 months later. There's a lot of people I can name in that department on a lot of different levels. So, the thing is never chase the trend, become the trend. Jay-Z said that at a concert. And the thing is, don't become don't follow the flow, be the flow.
Mm.
Who
I,
better than Jay? Jay knew because remember, Jay didn't get signed right away. People didn't believe Jay could be what he is today because it's like, he's boring. Okay. But he was different. Jay's
mm,
tone is different. And I should know because we all grew up together. Me, them, Bleak, my older brother. My older brother used to run with them. So I know. I saw it happen before my very eyes. And when Jay became the star, I was like, wow, see? And everybody was counting him out like, okay, he's not as good as so and so. He won't never be. He doesn't have to be. He's Jay-Z. And then now he's billionaire Jay-Z. So there you go.
yeah. Yeah. I like it, man. I definitely like it. No, you definitely have to have some diversity in your music or you, in your music far as being a music artist and stuff like that just to stand out because a lot of guys do just either sound just alike or not trying to be different or whatever. So I get you on that part. And also, man, diversity in music, man, I listen from hip hop, R&B, rock and roll, and I think I'm sort of the only person in the family. My mom got 4 kids, and I'm the only one who's sort of being a lot of diverse in the music, and I think it plays. I'm a huge wrestling fan, so that plays a factor in too, because the rock and roll and all that other stuff, and of course I like different type of country music and all that other stuff. So
I love country music.
yeah, I think
It's so funny to see all this stuff with this talk about Beyonce, because the thing
oh
for me,
yeah,
I've been sitting back laughing the whole time, and then most of my fans who've been rocking with me for the last 20 something years, they always go back to my older posts. It's like, Lord, you was talking about this from day one. A lot of people were very shocked to learn that I said, first of all, if you grew up in the era I grew, that's why I've always said that, and no disrespect to any era that came before us or after us, but this is why the 80s and the 90s to me was the best era in terms of diversity. Because look at the American Music Awards back in the 80s. On the same night, you would see Cameo winning the award, but then you would see the what's the country band Alabama? They would win all the awards every year. Alabama would win. The Oak Ridge Boys that sang on Lionel Richie records,
yeah.
and I was into it. And then not to mention Charlie Pride and Ray Charles. I mean, like this, the list goes on and on. So that's why, it's so funny that Beyonce is really, really out here causing an uproar and winning with the uproar. Because if she wasn't number one, see, her being number one proves the point. She's been number
It
one
does.
now. So the thing is that, here's a country album that's number one on the pop charts, number one on the country charts, and I think on the R&B charts has even made its way up there too, which is interesting considering that there's only a few R&B inflections in that whole album. But it's genius in my opinion, because it caused a conversation, and the strategy behind it is just excellent. I love the album, and the thing is just that I just love watching these so-called country music fans. A lot of them are very racist, because now they're like, oh, Beyonce is not country. And I'm just sitting here laughing. I said, y'all just mad. That's all that is. Y'all mad because now you have to deal with the history of it all.
I think obviously they're big man. Obviously, you got the people who are the diehard country fans who love the country music, and like how you just said, oh, Beyonce, she's not a country music artist, and then you also have our people in a way who is like, oh man, Beyonce doing country is like, I ain't
Well,
with
I
it,
mean,
So
but
I think
yeah.
it helps, being diverse, and just and always of like all the way around, just instead of just being just closed off and listening sort of just maybe hip
Well,
hop and R&B and whatever likes you like.
let me say this, and I'm gonna say this respectfully in regards to us. Sometimes that's the ignorance of our people. Nothing makes my skin crawl than to hear a black man or a black woman refer to rock and roll as white people's music. It makes my fucking I can't even, because that's the ignorance again of our people that didn't do the research, that don't understand. So imagine, and that's why that's another reason why Prince didn't find favor in the hood at first, until people matured and understood what Prince was doing. Prince is a disciple of our other idol, Stevie Wonder, probably the most diverse artist of his generation, because Stevie put all these things in one setting. You get what I'm saying? Listen to a song like and I ain't gonna stand for bad now. You hear Charlie Wilson, the Gap Band in the background. Where's Charlie Wilson from? He's a country boy. Charlie Wilson is they're from Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, the name Gap Band, GAP, stands for Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, which is the streets where they were from. That's what Gap stands for. And the thing is that to hear them yodeling on a Stevie Wonder record, because Stevie's diversity knew no bounds. Every Stevie Wonder album, if you go back to when he was 12 years old, look at all the albums. Stevie Wonder did Bob Dylan songs. Of course, he did them the Stevie way, but the thing is that showed you how mentally his version of the Doors, one of my favorite rock bands, is the Doors. Jim Morrison, Light My Fire. You ever heard his version? You ever heard Stevie's version of it?
I don't think I have though, but it sounds real familiar.
Funky as hell. Listen, when you get a chance. So that opened my mind up even more. So Prince took most of his cues of diversity from Stevie. So as I got older, even though the Jacksons are my first heroes, all of them, all 6 of them. So the thing is, I got deeper into Prince and Stevie by the time I turned 11 and 10 years old, because they were producing everything, they were playing everything, and no Prince album sounds the same. Every Prince album that he did, same thing with Stevie Wonder. Only thing that remains the same is their voice. But then even at certain period of time, they began to experiment and do certain things with their voice. Like Stevie Wonder would start singing through a talk box or a vocoder or whatever. And Prince started experimenting with these high frequencies of his voice and speeding up the tape machine to speed up his voice. On the song "If I Was Your Girlfriend," if you listen to the way because they sped the tape up. See what I'm saying? Like things like that inspired me as a producer and a songwriter and as an artist, and dared me to say, you know what, Lord, why can't you do that? You know what I mean? So the thing is, diversity is the key. But again, the ignorance of our people that would sit there and refer to rock and roll as white people's music when we created the shit. You know, T-Bone Walker was playing behind his back way before Jimi Hendrix. You see all the white guys playing with their teeth and all that stuff. They got it from us. We started. That's not a myth. That's not a fable. We started that. That's why I couldn't stand it. Thank God that Fishbone and Living Color and Bad Brains and 24/7 Spies and Space Battle and all those different groups that came out that were black derivative. They call it black rock, but to me it's still rock and roll, because the thing is that they had to call it black rock because the way the labels were doing the black artists and telling them, boy, you're a black group. You don't do rock and roll. Excuse me? You know, this is what we had to deal with. Not me per se, but this is what our people had to deal with for so long. So thank God for Parliament Funkadelic for leading the way, because if it wasn't for them, again, there would be no Prince, no Lenny Kravitz, no Fishbone, no 24/7 Spies, no Living Color. All the black rock groups that you saw that came out and dominated. I'm Deaf, you know, all those black groups that came out, and to remind them, thank God that Prince and Lenny Kravitz had the extreme mainstream success, because if they didn't have that, in my opinion, they used their crossover success to remind white people, y'all can do rock and roll. We don't have a problem. I mean, it's you know, music is universal. No matter what color you are, you can do the music that you want. Just make sure you recognize and respect and acknowledge where the fuck it comes from. That's the bottom line.
I dig it. I definitely dig it, man. You're big into music, and you know everything you say. I can definitely tell. But like you mentioned earlier as well, you grew up in the music industry, man. Your parents, your uncle, your grandfather, everyone just about was in the music industry, in the music business. You take me through that journey, man, and sort of how you got to, you know, where you at right now, with everybody being sort of an influence, though, because you said you wasn't forced to do it, and you know that you love to do it. Just about everybody was doing it.
Well, I mean, starting with my incredible mom, who just became a doctor recently. She got her doctorate degree. Congratulations, Mom. Love you. You know, starts in the family. And then when you grow up in a family full of singers and musicians, again, you can't go wrong. You know what I mean? So of course, starting in church with my incredible late grandmother, Beatrice Taylor. So, you know, gospel is the first, you know, not gospel, the gospel. We grew up in the hardcore part of Baptist Pentecostal, where you had to, but on the flip side of that, you know, when my mother became non-denominational, I had the best of both worlds. You know, Brooklyn Tabernacle was more so the mainstream choir sort of thing. So I went from, if you want to help me, Jesus, it's all right. Said, if you want to help me, you know, I came from that. But I also was raised with the "He's mine, oh mine," you know, that whole sort of thing. I grew up with that. So I had the best of both worlds. But then when you have a famous grandfather who played with everybody from Aretha to Etta James, you know, that's the R&B, that's the soul, that's the early rock and roll. And then my Uncle Bobby, God bless his soul, you know, was deep into Motown. So these were, my family was my Juilliard for music. So between the ages of 4 and probably 8, I was already performing, whether it was in church, doing shows with my mother. And, you know, of course, the Brooklyn Funk chapter, my mother's friends were also famous at the time, too. If you know anything about brass construction, BT Express or Crown Heights Affair, you know, Crown Heights Affair features Ray Rock on drums. That's Chris Rock's uncle. So,
With many success throughout all the family members, and did you see yourself working with Earth, Wind and Fire and
Well, I mean,
Amy Winehouse.
oh, I saw it. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad. See, here's the thing, because I'm often told that my confidence offends people, but you got to understand something. Considering where I grew up, and considering what my third grade teacher told me and my brother, that we wouldn't amount to anything. You dig what I'm saying? So I was ferociously determined to do whatever I wanted to do in music. Everything that I told my mother, for the most part, came true. At 12 years old, when I created Planet 12, the whole concept, I finally figured it out. I told my mother, I'm going to meet George Clinton one day. I'm going to become a Parliament Funkadelic. And in my third year of college, it happened. I told my mother that I was going to meet Lionel Richie because I used to sing Penny Lover for the school talent shows. Fast forward 20 years later, one of my very good friends, and I've worked with Lionel Richie 3 times in a row. In Hawaii at that. Yeah, I'm bragging. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
I told my mother that I was going to meet New Edition and New Kids on the Block and possibly work with them, or at least they'll be able to recognize that there's someone who really inspired by them more than they really believe. Because you got to remember, both groups went through a period where it was like this thing as can they survive? Will they stay together forever? Can they hang in today's market? And New Edition has always proved everybody wrong every single time. When 10 years went apart, it's like, man, them boys ain't getting back together. They got solo success now. And when all 6 members came back together in 96 for my favorite New Edition album, Home Again, they shut everybody up and they were even more stronger in numbers. So bottom line is, everything that I told my mother, for the most part, came true. It manifested because I was determined to be who I was. But if I didn't find my own magic, I wouldn't have discovered it. It wouldn't have happened. You have to find your own magic.
You do. You do. Quick question though. Why people so afraid, or yeah, I want to use the word afraid, but why people so afraid of others who are confident in a way, or I can't find the right word, but you just used it though. But you said, you're confident. And I think people don't like, that you're being confident in a way, but you are. And I think some people tend to shy away from those who are sort of extra confident or just confident in themselves though. It's like, why are you mad at me that I'm confident in myself and you're not,
Because I
like
grew
what's
up,
going on?
because here I'm gonna lay this all out for you. So I've often said, and I'm going to quote my Albany Project's big brother DJ Scratch, because I saw him say it. I don't know if he came up with it. Hopefully he'll let me know if he came up with it or he saw it somewhere else. But he posted it on his Facebook one day, and it stuck with me forever. Confidence is only arrogance to insecure people. And the thing is that I didn't grow up insecure. Fortunately for me, I grew up in a family where we were taught to hold our head high. And while you're holding your head high, if you see someone reaching out for help, for inspiration, pull them up with you. I've always done that. Anybody who's ever worked with me or been around me, they tell you that's pretty much been my whole thing. I walk with confidence because guess what? I want people to walk with confidence too. I grew up around, all my uncles are alpha males. And most of the women who I dated are alpha females. So it has to match. You dig what I'm saying? So the thing is, when I first started in this industry, extremely humble, nice. I've always been nice. And I started young. I started my first professional show was at 7 years old. So the thing is, I'm nice, I'm humble. Hi, like I'm a little kid. Hi. And then when I turned around 13 or 14, I realized that all that extra humbleness and niceness, it got me no fucking place. Because sometimes in life, you have to make people respect who you are and what you do. And because of the many talents that I had, I was a target. Think about it. Imagine being a real MC that happens to be a real singer, who's a real musician, but can put the instruments down and can really dance. So in most groups, I either really, really fit in and they love me, or They wouldn't invite me to shit. They wouldn't include me. Shit, I even had cousins that did that to me, believe it or not. You know, family members. So it became a whole thing of me having to constantly either prove myself until when I turned 17, 18, I began to get around people that were very much like me. And I'm a hardcore Brooklyn Scorpio. So the energy that I have should only match with those. And no matter what sign anybody is, because astrology only plays a very small part. You are who you are because of your experiences and how you were raised. That may fall in line with your sign eventually as you get older and discover more of what your personality or persona is. But for me, it was pretty much, I knew that before I turned 20, before I even turned 19, I had to figure out who my tribe was. So I don't understand it because all I've ever done since my career has started is self-confidence. A lot of my fans have hit me in the DMs and came to my shows and said, you know, because of you, I started my own business. I saw an interview that you did. And, you know, I learning your story. Now I understand you even more. A lot of people got to know me through the tweets and stuff before they even heard my music or my albums because they like what I was talking. They like how I was speaking. And I wasn't talking down to them. I was saying, listen, there's a huge difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is when you feel like you too good to talk to anybody, or you don't acknowledge the people that have played a part in where you got to. Of course, did I make the majority of it on my own? Absolutely. But as you see in most of my posts, I give shout outs to everybody who played a role in promoting the Planet 12 movement in some sort of way or fashion. That's why you'll hear me talk about Morris Day all the time. You're damn right. It's my idol. Mars, you know, Mars put me on his stage. He didn't have to do that. And Mars don't put nobody on his stage. So think about that. George believed in me when nobody didn't. And of course, my little sister, the late, great Amy Winehouse, at the time when her career was all about her. I'm just happy that she chose me to be one of the background singers and dancers in her unit. But then when she asked,
how was that for you?
Man, I still, yeah, it's, you know, the movie comes out in May, so I'm still emotional about a lot of different things. And, you know, ever so often, all the fans around the world who follow me, you know, they do all me and Zaylon steps and stuff. You know, I love it. And, you know, I see a lot of the tribute bands. They'll have the two guys with the suits that look like me and Zaylon. I love it. It never gets old for me. I never get tired of hearing it. It was such a whirlwind because, you know, as much as extensive as it was on an artistic level, I spent a very short time with Amy. It was only a year. It was close to like 2 years, a year and some change, like a year and 5 months. And the thing is, we accomplished a lot in that section. You know, and Amy didn't really get a chance to really flex the full part of what her talent really was on a lot of different levels. And she wasn't very ambitious about it. So even if she was still living today, we would have gotten an album like every other 2 years or some shit. That's how much Amy was very detached from the industry shit. Very much so. Even though she was still a part of it. So you know what I mean? But making my point is still that whole confidence because, you know, I think my confidence attracted the people who I attracted to, even on a personal level. Because the thing is, I mean, let's keep it honest. You know, I mean, and it's okay to be shy and be uncertain about certain things. That's human. But you should never be too shy or uncertain to where you talk yourself out of opportunity, or you talk yourself out of that new job that's looking for someone with your qualifications. No matter what it is, it don't have to be music. It could be anything. And people have left. So many people in my hood who never got a chance to make that move or to live life because they were scared about what people thought. If you imagine if Biggie would have listened to his friends when him and Diddy was in the studio and Diddy played that beat by Entombed, Juicy Fruit, and Biggie was looking at the cover of Entombed, when, you know, that's when Entombed had the hair and all that stuff. He's like, yeah, like Rick James.
Yeah,
always gonna laugh at me and might do this. And the one thing I will, you know, considering, you know, where Diddy is now, you know, I will say this respectfully. No matter what, you gotta give credit where credit is due. And Diddy is the one. He's the one that masterminded that thing. Even if he didn't produce the track himself, he didn't have to push the buttons, but he's the one that said, yo, Biggie, You got enough hard joints on your album. You need to rhyme over this. And it was like, but my friends are going to laugh at me. He said, and you'll be laughing all the way to the bank. Because initially, you seen the movie, it was true. They wanted to release Machine Gun Funk, which was one of my favorite Biggie songs on the first album. And that's a dope song. But he would have just been another mixtape rapper. And that's why when we hear It Was All a Dream, I used to read Word Up magazine. Man, I've done corporate shows where a lot of the white folks know all the lyrics to that song, and that makes me feel good, especially because we grew up around Junior Mafia and Biggie and all of them on St. James Place and even on Fulton Street. So the thing is, confidence is the way to approach things. And if Diddy wasn't confident about that record and really convinced Biggie to do that song, that's the song that put Biggie on the map. You dig what I'm saying? Everything else opened up after that. Then came Big Papa, where he sampled the Ozzy Brothers, Between the Sheets. You know what I mean? Certain things happen. But getting back to my points, so I don't veer off the end. The bottom line is, with confidence, you've won the race before you started. That's Marcus Garvey. He said that. So my thing, I had to be in that section. So just imagine me throughout my 20s. They looking at me like, okay, here come the dancer guy. Here come the guy doing this shit. And I'm just like, no, I do more than just dance. Don't get it. I've had to correct people a lot of times because, and I get it. Sometimes they see the shit, they be like, oh, but then when they realize, I'm like, damn, I forgot he could sing like that. I'm like, yeah, I do it when I want to. Y'all do it because y'all have to. I do it because I want to. So the thing is, without confidence in any industry, you will not win, or you will have a longer time, because once Lawrence became law, that's when things begin to change for me in the industry, especially because I was getting rejected by many labels, and the labels that want to sign me, they wanted to change me. So I had my dilemma was crazy. Like, I am with all this talent, and you would think that they would jump to sign someone like me, but nope. And that's because I knew too much about the music business, not just the music. I knew about the business. So again, thank God for confidence. It's the reason why I'm a boss of my own, who works with other bosses and sometimes for other bosses, but still maintain my degree of my own bossism, if it's such a word. So, but without confidence, I wouldn't be where I'm at today and going further.
Got you, man. I got you. Confidence definitely is a key, man. What definitely keeps you motivated? And it's sort of a signature. It really is a signature question here on the show. What keeps you motivated and what inspires you, man? Because like you said, man, you had a vision. Obviously you had a family. You had the whole family. From music artists to playing. Piano instruments, everything, man. You had a whole lot of direction going into this, and working from wonderful artists and open up from Rihanna and so on, man. What definitely keeps you going on, and what inspires
Well, first and foremost, without my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, there is no inspiration, because it comes from inside. You can think about it, but I've always said that God gives us the details in our dreams very early. But in the Bible, it says faith without works is dead, which means you can sit there and pray all day for God to open up doors for you, but if you're not out here hustling, if you didn't put your podcast and platform together, you wouldn't be getting the traction that you're getting now. But you made the choice to sit down one day and take the time. You wasn't out partying every night. You ain't out. You're putting time and investment into what you want to do. So God keeps me motivated. Of course, my children, my grandchildren, and I've always had my family support me for the most part. So that the thing is, having a mother that invests in your dreams is very important. And then last but not least, the fans, all of my musical heroes who are still living and the ones who passed away. Just last night, we lost one of the great members of the groups, the Jets, who was a huge influence on me growing up. We lost Eugene, Wolfgram of the Jets. They were known for their records, Crush on You, Private Number, Curiosity, Make It Real, Cross My Broken Heart. For those who are Jets fans, you know who they are. And they were a huge influence on me and my sister. Seeing a family rock out the way that they did, it inspired us. So, and Eugene was actually my third favorite member of the group. So Love and extreme condolences to the Wolfgram family, aka the Jets. Special shout out. We just lost recently the great genius Rico Wade of the Dungeon family. You know, that produced all that incredible Outcast, Goody Mob, TLC, you name it. We're losing our heroes at a much faster pace than we've ever had. That's what I hate to say it, but that's what keeps me motivated, because I feel like every time we lose any one of our icons in any one of the genres, I lose a piece of myself. So I have to remain strong in my hustle and promoting my Planet 12 musical movement, because if it wasn't for people like Rico Way, Dungeon Family was a huge influence on me and my brother. You know what I'm saying? So if it wasn't for guys like that, it wouldn't be no Planet 12. So that keeps me motivated. And of course, like I said before, my children. My children are my lifeline, because the thing is, generational wealth is something that they don't teach in school. Financial literacy should be taught in every school, not just in math, just teaching about business ethics and codes and Wall Street and stocks and municipal bonds, like things of that nature should be taught to every kid with a firm advantage to learn about how to maximize their money and to get into other things, and not just relying on the profit of what they love to do, but to expand it on even great levels. You know what I'm saying? So those are things that keep me motivated. You know what I mean? And again, the ones who are still out here doing it, George Clinton's like my dad. That man is 80. He's going to be 84 this year, 83 this year. Lionel Richie's going to be 74 this year. I work with both of those guys. Those are like my father figures. They're still out here killing it as if they were in their 20s and 30s. That's what keeps me motivated, because 40 years from now, I still want to be jumping around the stage and having people love what I do. You know what I'm saying? Go Jeffrey Osborne. Yeah. Jeffrey Osborne is 74, I believe, as well. See what I mean?
Yeah, I dig it, man. I dig it. I learn a lot from you, man. Just it's one of the funnest episodes, man. Like I always like to tell my guests, man. Just when you get confidence, or you get a guest who's just been open and just sharing their story, those are some of the best episodes, man. So, Lord, man, I appreciate you. Nah, man, you're welcome, man. I appreciate you for coming through here on the 11:30 podcast show. It was great, really great having you on and chopping it up with you, man. You got an album that's coming out next month, right?
Yeah, in a couple of months. I'm actually working on 5 different.
Coming out in a couple.
Yeah, okay. I'm actually working on 5 different albums now, and it's crazy because it's like 5. I'm like, yeah, because there's so much material that was in the can for my first 3 albums, And the thing is that I'm like, well, I'm putting this stuff out now. I'm not waiting. So I got singles coming out, re-releasing of certain singles coming out, new singles coming out, and I'm working on this jazz fusion project that is crazy. So you get to hear more of my vocal shit. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing a jazz fusion project that includes a Stevie Wonder cover and a George Michael cover. So not only am I singing on this album, but I'm also, of course, rapping on the album, and I'm also playing and flexing. I mean, I do that on all my albums that I have. I pretty much do the gamut of everything. But this jazz fusion project, along with my partners, Ben Graham, who's the brother of Lou Graham from the group Foreigner. Remember them? I Want to Know What Love Is. Yes. A Girl Like You, his older brother. So it's me, Ben Graham, and my boy Jay Bianchi, who I've done corporate gigs with for the last 20-something years. And this is our second project together. And we also going to have the legendary, iconic John Patitucci, bass icon on some of these songs on the Jazz Fusion project. So we got a lot of stuff coming. That's why when people be like, Lord, be on the move, I said, because I'm always doing something, whether it's an interview, whether I'm here. So I have 5 albums coming out between now and next year. There's a lot of different projects I'm working on with different people. I gotta hit up the Kennedy administration. Those are my folks. I love me some Kennedy, and they're doing a collaboration with me and different things like that. So you're gonna be seeing a lot of stuff between the next 6 or 7 months. So
I appreciate it. Look at it. That's awesome work, man. Keep definitely having faith, man, and hustling and keep doing what you're doing, man. I love the motivation. Anybody you want to work with that you haven't worked with yet, or anybody in mind?
God, man, it's man.
Maybe like 3 people you have in mind, maybe.
Definitely Lizzo, without question.
Lizzo.
Yeah, I love Lizzo. You kidding me? If you knew the history of Lizzo, you would understand. Like I'm a day one Lizzo fan. But number one for me, I met him I hung out with my idol for 5 hours in Beverly Hills. I asked him everything that the 8-year-old kid wanted to ask Stevie Wonder. Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to manifest. And I say that after we exchanged numbers, you couldn't tell me nothing that day, man. Like after, and this was almost a couple of years ago. You know, it's me and Stevie Wonder, Diary of Jade, Maxie from the Mary Jane Girls. This is all of us. 5-hour conversation with Stevie Wonder. You couldn't tell me nothing that day. And when I went back to my hotel room, I cried like a baby. I've been wanting to meet Stevie since I was 7 years old. And I finally got a chance to tell that man what his artistry and what his albums mean to me and still mean to me. And not just songs in the key of life and inner visions either. We got deep. He was like, wow, Lord, you know your stuff, man. I was like, yeah. I said, listen, I don't, our family, I mean, see the Motown overall reigns sovereign, period. But that's on my bucket list. And of course, Lenny Kravitz definitely, and me and Lionel Richie going to work together very soon. We already talked about it over the years that we worked together. So we're definitely going to be doing something very soon. But, you know, just in a matter of doing what I do. And I already worked with Jelly Bean and Monty Moore of Mars Day and the Time. So there's more stuff coming on that too.
Okay, man. And look at man, great work you got going on and to come, man. Hey, this was awesome conversation to have with you, my guy Law. I appreciate you for coming through
Thank
here
you
on
so
the
much,
show,
man.
you guys.
Be here. Thank
Uh,
you for showing love, man. Appreciate it. Thank
anytime. The links will be down below, you guys, man. So you're gonna go follow him on social media and check out his latest music, man, for real. And he got an album coming out in a couple of months. So definitely I look forward to having you back on the show. Great guy to chat with, man. And before you go, any questions, any shout outs, anything you would like to say?
you. Shout out to all of my icons, you know, George Clinton, Source Money, Jay-Z, Big Daddy Kane, all of my heroes who invested in me. Lionel Richie, Mars Day and the Time, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Like I say all the time, it's one thing when the fans co-sign your talent and bring you on, but when your heroes co-sign your talent and bring you on, it's an element. Shout out to all of my fans around the world, even the ones who've been rocking with me since the days of MySpace. Yeah, ain't that deep? I still got the MySpace, like people who have been rocking with me from day one. And again, rest in peace to Casey Benjamin, Eugene Wolfgram from the Jets, Rico Wade from the Dungeon Family. You know, these are among the men who inspired me. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, man. I look at it. Awesome, man. Awesome having you on. This was great. Like I said, great conversation. Great vibe, man. I learned a lot from you. Can't wait to have you on in the near future, man. This is a great
Anytime,
episode.
man.
Great conversation, man.
Anytime. I'm
Okay.
here.
All right, man. Definitely. Like I said, everyone, man, the links are down below in the description. Make sure you go check my guy Law out, man, and support everything he got going on. We're gonna take this quick break, you guys. We're gonna come back and wrap up the show. WTF moment and more. Don't move, man. You're listening and you're watching to the 11:30 podcast. Law, man. I appreciate you for coming through
Same here, bro.
here on the show, man.
Appreciate it.
Wrestle Talk Wednesday.
That's right. Get with me, Brian B., as well as buzzing with Marlowe's very own Warren Marlowe, the American prodigy. And you see him, your man from the 11:30 podcast, Dre on Wheels. That's right. We the commission talking that Wrestle Talk Wednesday nights, 5 p.m. live. Yeah, be there, subscribe, follow, like, share. Get at us. Commission, baby.
Yo, what up? This your boy Kenneth Stones, aka Coffee Weaston.
This your boy D.O.E. Good Brother Bold.
And we are the Dirty Hills. You already know, man, you tuning in to 11:30 podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Not 7:30, but 11:30.
Dude, that's my job. Not 7:30, but 11:30.
Yeah. And you have been Dirty Hills approved.
Here on the 11:30 podcast. Appreciate everyone sticking with me throughout the break. Yo, my guy Law, man, I appreciate you for coming through here on the 11:30 podcast show this week. Great time having you on. Great conversation, man. Real legendary guy. The links are down below, you guys, man. Definitely go stream his latest music. Follow him on social media and everything, man. For real. And once again, shout out to Katrina, who definitely reached out and set up these amazing interviews with Law and also Kenny J, who was on a couple of weeks ago. So amazing. Yes, you guys for coming through here on the 11:30 podcast show. But you guys, man, before the break, like I said, man, we about to wrap it up and head on out of here. But before we do, you guys, man, it's time for the WTF moment of the week, you guys. Yes, WTF moment of the week, man. For real, got my little man in the background. He's definitely trying to come in here and be part of the show as well. But you guys, man, WTF, man, I had my guy Law on, man, a real legendary music guy in the business, dancer, everything, man, producer, songwriter, from an incredible guest to interesting WTF moment, and we're gonna keep it in the music. But right now, man, I don't even think I did my research, and I'm a little upset that I didn't though. But man, oh man, the Chris Brown and Quavo, man, Chris Brown, Quavo beef, man. We got two black brothers, man, going. But you guys, man, the 11:30 podcast Talk Pro Wrestling indeed returns this Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central. We definitely going to be going over night one of the WWE Draft. Spring break-in, AEW, what was it, Dynasty that happened this past Sunday. Incredible pay-per-view. We seen their first AEW Black Champion and Swerve Strickland. Gonna be chatting about it all, man. Also, Commission Talk is live Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so definitely make sure you tune in, man. For real, I gotta go, man. But you guys, man, this has been an incredible show, a great show. I thank you guys for tuning in here on YouTube. But for now, you guys, man, shout out to my guy Law for coming on the show. It's your man Dre, aka Dre on Wheels, man. Stay blessed, stay safe, give all the glory to God, man. Won't he do it? Yo, until next time, I'm out. Peace.
I'm from the city, DC, that's where I'm from. 11:30 podcast, Dre on Wheels, he is the one. Let's get it, yeah. Who with me? Let's get it, yeah. No, with me, yeah. I'm from the city, DC, that's where I'm from. Let's get it. 11:30 podcast, Dre on Wheels, he is the one. He the one, nigga. So let's get it, baby. He the one with me. So Breeze, baby. Let's get it. You with me. Yeah, they gon' hate, but they ain't stopping this. I'ma keep making hits. Dre and Wills, you know it ain't no copying. Was you sitting there on the carpet with us? Yeah, we knew we had some options. We blessed